Hey everyone, today we're going to break down one of the most fundamental ideas in all of economics, the production possibility frontier. Now, I know, it sounds a little complicated, but trust me, it's actually a really simple and powerful way to understand the kinds of tough choices that everyone has to make, whether you're a single farmer or an entire country.
So let's just get right to the heart of it with a big question. Look, we all know we can't have everything we want, right? Time, money, land, people to do the work, all of these things are limited. They're scarce. So how on earth do we decide what to make with what we've got? And maybe more importantly, what we have to give up?
To really wrap our heads around this, let's make things super simple for a second. Let's just imagine a tiny economy, maybe a small farming community. They have a certain amount of land, a specific number of workers, and that's it. And with those resources, they can only do two things. They can grow cotton to make clothes, or they can grow wheat to make food. That's the choice, cotton or wheat.
So you've got this choice, right? More cotton means less wheat. More wheat means less cotton. How do you actually visualize that? Well, economists came up with a pretty clever tool to do exactly that, and it's called the Production Possibility Frontier. We'll just call it the PPF. And at its core, it really is that simple. A PPF is just a graph. It draws a curve, or a frontier, that shows you every single possible combination of, in our case, cotton and wheat, that our little community could possibly produce if they use every last worker and every square inch of land. All right, here's the more textbook definition. But you'll see the same ideas are right there. It's a graph, it shows combinations of two things, and here's the key phrase again. When the resources of the economy are fully utilized, this is all about showing the absolute maximum potential of what can be done.
Oh, and just so you know, if you're out there reading up on this, you might see a couple of other names pop up, like the Production Possibility Curve, or PPC, or even the Transformation Curve. Don't let it throw you off, they all mean the exact same thing. But for today, we're just going to stick with PPF.
Okay, now, for this whole model to work and make sense, it has to operate on a few key rules. You can think of them as the ground rules that simplify the messy real world so we can get a really clear picture of the big ideas we're talking about.
And it's actually pretty straightforward. This entire idea, the PPF, is built on just four core assumptions. Think of them like the four legs of a table. You need all of them to hold the whole thing up. Understanding these is absolutely key to understanding the frontier itself.
So what are they? Real quick, your resources are fixed. You're only making two things. You're using everything you've got, and your technology isn't changing. Now let's just take a second to break down what each of those really means for our little farm.
First up, resources are fixed. This just means our community has what it has. Let's say it's 100 acres of land and 10 workers. That's it. Now they can move a worker from the wheat field over to the cotton field, for sure, but they can't just snap their fingers and suddenly have 11 workers or 120 acres. The total pie is a fixed size.
Second, we pretend that only two things can be made. Now obviously that's not how the real world works, right? Real economies produce millions of different goods and services. But to make the trade-off we're trying to see super clear on a simple graph, we boil it down to just two options. For our farmers, it's cotton or it's wheat, nothing else.
The third assumption is all about efficiency. And when we say fully utilized, we mean fully. Every single worker is working hard. Every single patch of land is being farmed. There is zero waste, no unemployment, no fields just sitting empty. This is why it's called a possibility frontier. It represents the absolute edge, the maximum possible output.
And finally, our last rule. We assume technology is constant. For this one specific graph we're looking at, the way our community farms, the kinds of plows they have, their irrigation methods, all of it, it's not getting any better or any worse. We're essentially taking a snapshot in time with the tech they have right now. All right, so we have a graph showing a curve, and we have the four rules that make it work. You might be thinking, okay, a simple farm, 2 crops, so what? Well, this is where it gets really cool, because this simple little model is a fantastic way to illustrate some of the biggest, most important ideas in all of economics.
And this right here is the number one thing to take away. That curve, that frontier, it's not really about cotton and wheat. It's a perfect picture of three huge economic concepts. It shows us scarcity, because you physically cannot produce outside the line. It shows us choice, because you have to pick one point to be on the line. And it perfectly shows us trade-offs, because moving along that line to get more of one thing means you always have to give up some of the other.
So that leaves us with one final and really powerful question to think about. Remember that last rule, that technology was constant? Well, What happens if we break that rule? What if our farmers invent a brand new, game-changing plow that lets them harvest twice as fast? Suddenly, that whole frontier, that line, it pushes outward. New combinations that used to be literally impossible are now on the table. And that, in a nutshell, is economic growth. It's innovation expanding the very definition of what's possible. Something to chew on.